Every time the pressure rises, we play better. Yeah! Let's go take down the trail.
An Ultiworld subscription gets you closer to the players and personalities you care about with game video, in-depth written and video analysis.
He's going to take off deep, but what he does is very simple.
Documentary shorts.
And we've played Brute Squad before, and it just feels a little bit harder to lose this year.
And a whole lot more. To get your subscription or learn more, go to ultiworld.com/subscribe.
This game is brought to you by Spin Ultimate, proud to sponsor Ultiworld's 2020 college coverage. Visit Spin Ultimate on the web at spinultimate.com.
Hello and welcome back to Milwaukee, Wisconsin. For the 2015 College Championships, it is the pre-quarter round here at Nationals, and we are very excited to be bringing you this game between Pittsburgh and UNC Wilmington, a matchup filled with history and probably the most anticipated game so far of the tournament. Coming into this weekend, these were really looked at as maybe the two top teams in the men's division. Now we know that one of them will not even make it to the quarterfinals. The team that wins will go on to face Central Florida in the quarterfinals. The team that loses is going home. I'm Charlie Eisenhood alongside Ian Toner. Excited to bring you the game here today. We also are joined by Ultiworld reporter Patrick Stegemeller for the pregame show here. And what I want to start with is just a look at how these teams got here. Patrick, you've been watching these teams all weekend long. How did they end up in this game? This is not how the script was written.
Well, you're absolutely right about that, Charlie. I think coming into the weekend, you looked at Pitt's pool and you said, probably going to have a pretty good chance of coming out on top of that. And in Wilmington, a little bit of a tougher pool in Pool D, but still two top seeds. Usually you'd predict that both of them would make the bye to quarterfinals. For neither of them to get that bye and to be meeting here in the pre-quarters is definitely a shock. Wilmington has been, very sketchy all weekend. They didn't beat either of the other two top teams in their pool, Colorado or UMass, and they barely beat UC Santa Barbara on Universe Point just to make it into this game. So it has been a very different Wilmington team than what we've seen in the regular season.
And Patrick, to give some more context to those results, Wilmington had a lead on Colorado at halftime in pool play and just kind of managed to choke away their lead in the second half against a Mama Bird team that was really hungry to claw back and steal that victory out of their hands. Pitt, on the other hand, found themselves surprised by Texas's efficiency. They've had a lot of success behind Chase Cunningham and Dylan Larberg's play. Pitt was down 8-7 at half in that pool play game against Texas. And it was 12-9 at one point, Texas up, and Pitt finally awoke, mounted a three-point charge to force double game point, even had the disc and forced a turn on double game point, but they were not able to convert that break, and Texas went on to win and seal the pool.
And what do you think has been different about UNC Wilmington that got them to this point into this game as opposed to what we saw from them in the regular season and their dominance over almost everybody except Pitt, which we'll get to in a second?
Well, if you look at the way they've played this weekend tactically, it's been very similar to the way they played in the regular season, but it seems like they're just 90% of the team that they were earlier in the year. I think for me, the biggest thing I've noticed is that over the course of the regular season, Wilmington's O-line was often able to get the disc back whenever they took big shots, big hucks that didn't work out. Here at Nationals, when every team's just playing a little bit harder, every in-cut is a little bit harder to get, they haven't been able to get the disc back because these teams are grinding on them. When they played UMass this morning, UMass's D-line efficiency was something in the neighborhood of 80%. They were just converting on all of their break opportunities. And when Wilmington isn't able to get the disc back and their O-line starts leading to turns, they're in trouble.
And, of course, there is a deep history between these two programs. Last year at Nationals, UNC Wilmington won back-to-back-to-back double game point victories or back-to-back to get into the quarterfinal matchup against Pittsburgh, where they then went on to win another double game point game in order to reach the semifinals. It was a stunning upset over Pittsburgh, who was largely considered the favorite last year to win the title. We're about 5 minutes from game time right now. And that game was decided on a single break at the end of the game. It was a final of 14-13 UNC Wilmington. And then later, we see these teams match up again in the finals of Easterns this year down in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, and it was Pittsburgh coming out on top 17-16 in a game that really could have gone either way. You guys have seen these teams been playing. Who do we like to win this matchup in this moment?
I think that if I'm putting my money, I'm putting it on Pittsburgh. They lost that one game to Texas, and I think that this will light a little bit of a fire in them. You know, they hadn't lost before they hadn't lost since January before today. So I think maybe they could have been riding a little bit of a high coming into this weekend, thought, you know, we're not going to have any trouble in pool play. They just got punched in the mouth, and we're going to see how they react to it.
Patrick, I have to agree with you and give Pittsburgh the edge here. I got the chance to speak with head coach Nick Kazmarek in Pitt's pregame warm-ups, and I asked about the morale and mental state of the team, and he said that this is a hungry, confident, angry team heading into this matchup. Not an angry in a kind of lose control sense, but in a destined and determined to prove yourself sense. Kazmarek likened it to the days back when he was a player in Pitt's program before they had won national championships, and when Pitt was knocking at the door and clawing at the backs of the more reputable programs. That being said, we say all these things about Pitt having the edge. That's exactly what UNC Wilmington wants to feed their mindset and confidence going into this game. They love playing as the underdog with the chip on their shoulder with no expectations.
And for a team that has been so good this season, for UNC Wilmington to feel like an underdog again has to be a bit of an odd place to be. They come into this game, and I think most people probably do think Pitt will win this game. I think it's going to be very close. Patrick Stegemeller, thanks for your time.
Great to be here, Charlie.
All right, so we're now 2.5 minutes from game time. Ian, let's talk quickly about some of the keys to this game tactically on the field. We've got some very important matchups to watch. Of course, these teams know each other well. They played earlier this season in a very high-stakes game, but it doesn't get any more high stakes than this, the pre-quarters with the loser going home.
Charlie, I think something that's going to be really interesting, one of the knocks on Pitt's defense all year has been their ability to compensate for and defend in the air, especially against strong, tall, deep games. As we know, UNC Wilmington has one of the best throwers in the country, Xavier Maxtat, who's not afraid to uncork deep shots from anywhere on the field to anywhere on the field. So I think we're going to have to keep an eye on Maxtat's efficiency and how well his deep game connects.
And Xavier Maxtat has had some troubles this weekend at connecting, often looking deep to Jack Williams, but that hasn't always been there. When there's been a tough mark on Williams like UMass's Jeff Babbitt, Williams has struggled to dominate in the air the way that he has for most of the regular season. Now, that said, Pittsburgh is not exactly adept at covering the deep shot. They don't have a ton of height. Their biggest player, who often takes the big matchups on defense, Marcus Reyni-Dropcho, is not really somebody that you would consider a special deep defender. I mean, he's almost more valuable to the team on offense with his big body and his ability to throw. But Pittsburgh has been talked about all year as a bit susceptible to the deep game, and I think that's what we saw just happen in that Texas game. Texas, a very tall team, used its height very effectively to upset Pitt and take the top spot in Pool A.
And you saw that in those direct matchups between Marcus Reyni-Dropcho and Chase Cunningham, as we see the opening pull unleashed by Charlie Leon.
UNC Wilmington in the black with the tie-dye trim. Pittsburgh in white with the blue lettering. Pat Earls catches the first throw from Pittsburgh, and we are underway. Earls looking deep right away, and there's a blown coverage, and it looks like a simple turnover. Not clear if there was a pick called. Either way, it's going to be a turnover, and it's going to be UNC Wilmington disc.
Charlie Leon not afraid to pull the trigger on riskier shots either. He's going to be picking up on Wilmington's own goal line.
Charlie Leon, defensive handler for this UNCW team. Very important player for them. They need him to get going early. Leon swings to the center of the field. And it's turned over right back to Pittsburgh. So a little bit of confusion between the Wilmington handler set. Gabe Fuller not quite on the same page with Leon there. It'll be Tyler Kunza picking up for Pittsburgh, and there's going to be a foul here on the mark.
You see Max Thorne streaking across the end zone there. Thorne left the Texas game with a surprising knee injury. We talked to Coach Kazmarek before the game. He said he expects Thorne to contribute as much as he can to play his full role on the offense.
As we watch Max Thorne drop an easy play, and Charlie Leon's going to pick it up and rip it deep immediately, but too far. So it'll go right back to
Charlie,
Pittsburgh.
these teams look anxious here at the start. They haven't quite settled into a groove or a rhythm. I think that's got to explain some of the huck turnovers and drops that we've seen in these first few moments.
Pat Earls with the disc for Pittsburgh. Throw out into space for Tyler Kunza. Wilkin Hanaway on the mark against Kunza. Earls looking deep, putting up the backhand. He's got a man downfield all alone, but his throw is too far, and Joe Bender is not going to have a shot. So, like you said, Ian, a little bit of jittery start here to this game.
3 turnovers already for the Pitt offense.
Very uncharacteristic.
Indicative of their kind of shaky start to this weekend.
Charlie Leon brings the disc to the line for Wilmington. Swings to Fuller.
And right off the bat there, you saw Carlton Roos streaking deep.
And now we have a jump ball. Earls going up over the top and getting the D for Pittsburgh, but an immediate foul call from the Wilmington receiver. Jason Alexander calling the foul. Earl's a good 6 inches taller than Alexander. An observer was right on top of the play, and the ruling is that it was indeed a foul. And that's a huge call from the observers, as UNC Wilmington will retain possession now in the red zone.
Alexander will end up with the disc for the Seamen.
Checked into play. Wilmington looking to convert in the red zone. Throw over the top is easily intercepted by Max Thorne. Thorne steps immediately into a big huck down the field. He's got Bender down there, and Bender can't bring it down. Nice defense from UNC Wilmington, and this has been a back and forth point to get this game started. We have a travel call, so the disc will go back. Grayson Sanner has to throw it back to Hanaway.
That's 4 turnovers in this first offensive possession for Pittsburgh.
Up the line. Charlie Leon looking deep. Tips out of the hands of the UNC Wilmington receiver and back to Pittsburgh. Just really a catchable disc and just not handled well. So Earls and Kunza working the backfield for Pittsburgh. Oh, nearly blocked by Wilmington.
That's Carlton Roos on the mark. He's a former college football player who's converted to Frisbee.
Big shot, and it goes off the hands of Saul Graves. Would have been a tough play to make. And so the Kunza deep shot makes it the 5th turnover for Pittsburgh. So again, Charlie Leon will trot to the disc and bring it to the line. Wilmington had it in the red zone on the previous possession, but couldn't convert.
Grayson Sanner there dumping that disc. Grayson, a freshman on the UNC Wilmington team. He's from Arlington, Virginia.
And a nice grab here on the near sideline from Alexander, who had to catch it on the second effort but managed to stay in bounds. Now bounces back to Leon. Charlie Leon often looking to the end zone. Nothing down that way right now, so he'll put up a short hammer out into the break side space. Sanner back to Leon, and we have a call on the field. And you have to think the pace and the style of this first point of the game very much favors UNC Wilmington.
This is the slow, grinded out style that's characteristic of Wilmington and even North Carolina Club Ultimate.
And a turnover on a swing pass from Wilmington is going to give the disc back to Pittsburgh near midfield. And you see Tyler Kunze taking a moment to collect himself before he picks it up. And go to Earls on the backhand sideline. Wind really starting to die down a bit here. Oh, and a shot to Earls in the end zone. Earls goes up and he makes the grab. So a very long point with a lot of turnovers, but eventually Pittsburgh holds and makes it 1-0 over UNC Wilmington.
Such a difficult disc for Sanner to even have a chance at, as Earls just kind of gives and goes, and he's in that dangerous spot where he starts kind of in some dead space on the break side. And that throw curls to the break side, where Earls already had a one-step advantage. So after 5 turnovers, Pittsburgh is able to hold and maintain a 1-0 lead here in this pre-quarterfinal matchup.
So now we're going to get our first look, finally, at the UNC Wilmington offense. And you should know some of the names by now. Xavier Maxtat, Luke Hancock, the big throwers in the backfield. They'll be looking down the field to Eric Esposto, Jack Williams, their big deep cutter. And when this offensive line is clicking, they're very dangerous. They can score in bunches, but they've struggled a little bit to be consistent and to avoid giving up breaks all season long, and particularly you're seeing it happen this weekend. The sort of bailout looks that they've been able to come down with during the regular season just haven't been there here in Milwaukee.
Yeah, I think that's what happens when you have anchors of your O-line who are very high-risk, high-reward throwers. Luke Hancock and Xavier Maxtat aren't afraid to throw riskier blades that may give defenders stronger chances at the disc.
Xavier Maxtat gets things started with a throw underneath. Now a deep shot looking for Williams. Williams goes up. He's not going to make it, and he's not going to get it on the second effort. Nice try, but it'll be a turnover to get things started for Wilmington as well.
Marcus Dropcho there guarding Williams. Not typically a deep defender, but that's who Pitt wants on Williams to start this game.
Trent Dillon brings it to the line for Pittsburgh. He'll swing it over to Jonah Wish. Wish, star sophomore on this team, but not on that throw. He was looking for Dillon and threw the hammer into the ground. So a short field turn will give Wilmington a start in their own red zone. And Xavier Maxtat with a short over-the-top backhand into the end zone. And Austin McGrain, who is often finding that underneath room for UNC Wilmington's offense, gets the score.
Into the end zone for Austin McGrain. In the Wilmington score.
So Pitt gets its own chance to break and isn't able to convert. Jonah Wish kind of stranded there at a high stall. Trent Dillon was over, but this wind definitely making that hammer throw more challenging than it normally is. And Wish just missed the mark there. Maxtat with an easy high release backhand for the goal. And we're gonna see the same Wilmington D-line that started the game, for the most part, out there working against Pittsburgh's offense.
So both offenses turn it over on their first point. And that may just show you what kind of nerves these teams have coming into this game, knowing that the season is on the line.
Both teams have storied coaching staffs, as you saw Tully Beatty coming off the line after giving his defensive unit instructions. The rest of Wilmington's staff includes Greg Vassar, who's coached the program for several years, and Brian Casey, a Wilmington alum, who is now one of the captains of the North Carolina club team, Ring of Fire.
Disc pops up, and it's going to be defensible, but a great grab by Max Thorne after he dropped it. Saves possession for Pittsburgh. Over the top of Charlie Leon, and a great play there from Thorne. Thorne inside break to Earls. And Earls with the big lefty flick, but nobody home. A miscommunication there with Saul Graves, and Wilmington will get the disc again.
Charlie, that's Earls' favorite throw, that swing to him where he can break the mark with his around flick huck coming out of his left hand. That's his bread and butter. Surprised that the Cutters were not able to read and time that appropriately.
Wilmington's defense back to work. Gabe Fuller catches it up the line. Fuller gets off the inside break to Cale Ward. Ward has had a bit of a breakout season for UNC Wilmington. This now with Danny Mercer. He gets it into the middle for Leon. And a travel call will hold up play.
This stays with Leon.
And now a big shot deep. And a cutter all alone. Wilkin Hanaway pulls it down for the UNC Wilmington break.
And once again, we see Wilmington's willingness to pull the trigger on riskier throws. Charlie Leon with a static hammer to the break side. And then that huge outside-in blade to the opposite corner. A throw that's usually challenging and frowned upon in traditional sets, but it's given Wilmington the team's first break and an early lead at 2-1 here in this pre-quarterfinal.
One of the knocks on Pittsburgh has been their inability to convert breaks consistently. And so an early hole does not bode well for this team. They were down in the first half by a score against Texas. Texas opened up the lead to about 3. And then Pittsburgh was able to finally mount some pressure at the end of the game in order to close the deficit. But they would end up going on to lose on double game point. It really a crazy point. Texas on the previous point was given their third team misconduct foul for essentially what was a tackle on a Pat Earls score. And they had to start the possession from their reverse brick, but they were able to fight through the point, score it, and send Pittsburgh into this game against Wilmington. So we see a zone look here from Wilmington as the Pitt offense gets started. Earls gets it to Thorne. Now Thorne gets it through the middle and into the hands of Andrew Lemberg, one of the bright spot freshmen on this Pittsburgh team. Here's Tyler Kuntza. Kuntza back to Earls. Pittsburgh's stack very deep, struggling to get separation, but Christian Pitts finds some room. Earls with it now on the sideline. Now Earls putting up the big shot. It's just going to be into a pile, but it's brought out of the sky for the Pittsburgh score by Christian Pitts.
Charlie, we spoke earlier about Pittsburgh's lack of height and lack of defense in terms of a deep game. Christian Pitts is one of those few players who's been able to play both ways and perform especially well on 50-50 discs.
I think one of the undercurrents of this game is how Pittsburgh's sort of second-tier stars play. And that includes Christian Pitts, although I think there's a very good case to make for Pitts as sort of one of their top players at this point. But they need him to get going, and it's great to see him come out and get a play like that to try to jumpstart some energy in this Pittsburgh team, which looks very tight to start the game.
So now we're going to see Wilmington's offense working upwind for the first time this game. As we take a look at Pitt's defensive line, they're still maintaining their traditional personnel, haven't pulled Earls, Kunza, or anyone else over quite yet.
We will see them fill up their lines with their top 7 players. They call them kill lines, and it's a staple of this Pittsburgh team when they're looking for a break. For now, they're content to let Marcus Reynight-Dropcho and Trent Dillon, typical defenders, stay out there. The big pull from Sam Van Dusen rolls out the back of the end zone.
Pull rolls out the back of the end zone. The Seaman will put it in play from the goal line.
It'll be Luke Hancock bringing it to the line with Xavier Maxtad in the backfield for Wilmington. Cale Ward with the undercut to get things started.
Foul called.
But a call, maybe a push-off call against Ward.
Mitch Dangler ruling that there was no foul.
Call waved off by the observer. The disc will advance.
Daniel O'Connor on the mark here against Ward.
Cale Ward with the disc for the Seaman.
Ward dishes back to Hancock. Around to Maxtat, back to Ward. And now Ward stepping into a big flick. Pittsburgh defenders in the area, and it tips away from the UNC Wilmington receivers.
Wilmington turnover.
Not really a clean look there from Ward. 4 players underneath the throw, and now Pittsburgh going to go immediately back in the other direction. Trent Dillon down there, and Dillon pulls it down. Not quite into the end zone. He'll tap it in, looking to finish the point, and now there's a call as Xavier Maxtad gets him for a travel.
And that's a ticky-tack call that you really don't like to see made. Maxtat just trying to give his defense time to assess the odd man rush situation. Not a fan of that call at all.
I think he's claiming that Dillon didn't set his foot directly on the goal line for his pivot.
And Dillon makes him pay, beating Maxtat to the cone. And Pittsburgh gets its break back. They lead 3-2.
So just like that, Pittsburgh answers. And you're seeing some of what we talked about during the pregame show. That shot from Cale Ward for UNC Wilmington, basically just a jump ball, hoping for somebody to come down with it. You got 4 players underneath it. It looks like even maybe a UNC Wilmington player got a hand on the disc, but it's tough to come out of the sky with a disc in that situation when everyone's standing underneath it.
And I think that's a product of the direction that they were working in there. I think that decision works and is more effective when they're going downwind in the opposite direction. I think Ward kind of underestimated the challenge in the upwind throw before he released it.
What does it mean to be powered by Savage? It means we become part of your team. From the moment you're paired with one of our sales reps who will guide you through the ordering process, to working with a designated member of our design team to bring your vision to life. Every step of the production process happens in-house, from printing your gear on our Green Line fabric made from 100% recycled plastic bottles, to cutting out every piece and carefully stitching it together by hand. Wherever you are, however you play, we've got your back. That's what it means to be powered by Savage.
So Pittsburgh puts this game back on serve, each team with 1 break in the early part of this first half. Beautiful setting here. You can see the hill back behind the field here, giving a fantastic spectator area in case people don't want to sit in the bleachers that are set up. This is where the semifinals and finals will be played tomorrow. That will be broadcast on ESPN3. Be sure to tune in for that. Semifinals tomorrow at noon, but be sure to check in for the quarterfinals. We'll have a women's division game streamed live here at 8:30 a.m. tomorrow morning. UNC Wilmington's offense back to work, and it's a turnover as Austin McGrain can't make the catch.
Wilmington turnover.
The wind definitely having an impact there. The Wilmington receiver got a hand on it, but he wasn't able to reel it in as an extra gust kind of stuck under the disc. and prevented him from keeping a hand on it.
Marcus Rainai drop show, throws through the cup, and it's knocked away.
An uncharacteristic turnover from drop show and a shot to the end zone.
And a score for the UNC Wilmington.
So just when the Seamen thought they were going to be giving up another break chance, they recover quickly with a quick offensive strike. This game is tied at 3.
Matt Mason with the block there on the run through. An ambitious pass from Marcus Rainai drop show.
Charlie, just a quick look at some other updates around the division. We do have 3 other pre-quarterfinals taking place simultaneously. Colorado leads Georgia 3-2. Texas A&M and Florida State are tied at 3 as well.
So lots of close games. Of course, you can follow along. We have score updates from every game on our Twitter account, UltiWorld Live, but the easiest place to follow it is on our live website page, ultiworld.com/live. You can watch the live stream right there and keep up with the scores of the other games from both the men's and the women's division. And teams fighting for their Sunday lives. UltiWorld's live coverage is brought to you today by Boone Technical Clothing. Boone Technical Clothing is changing the game by their top-level performance clothing at a value price point. Here's the poll from UNC Wilmington. Patterolls watches it sail out of bounds, and it's going to get centered up to Tyler Kunza.
Tyler Kunza picks up. He'll put it in play from the brick mark.
So Kunza will walk it to the brick mark, and it'll get checked in. Hanaway on the mark. Kunza looking to the outside, finds Thorne. Thorne steps immediately into a throw to Joe Bender, and Bender pulls it down. And that's the textbook Pittsburgh offense that we've grown accustomed to seeing this season. And that's really the first point we've seen it show up here as they take a 4-3 lead.
Yeah, that's operating out of that side stack with so much space for the Cutters to dictate their own path is really Pitt's bread and butter. You saw Thorne started off getting some separation on Grayson Sanner, and then it was just a nice, easy finish down the line to Joe Bender.
Sizable Pitt contingent in the crowd, getting fired up between points here.
And Van Dusen on the pull once again for Ensabanur.
So we still see pretty standard defensive line from Pittsburgh. Van Dusen with the pull. And an offsides call will bring this back.
Offsides on the pull.
And we'll have a re-pull here. Each team allowed 1 offsides warning. Anything beyond that and yardage penalties are assessed.
Charlie, at what point do you think we're going to see more varied junk looks from the Wilmington defense?
Probably some point in this first half. Tully Beatty has a lot of tricks up his sleeve, and they know how they like to get Pittsburgh out of their rhythm. So UNC Wilmington's offense here back to work. Xavier Maxtat with it. Big swing out into space. Oh, and what a catch from the Wilmington receiver. Jack Williams goes up against 2 defenders and somehow comes up with it. And looks like a TMF assessed. It could be a technical foul, but likely TMF assessed on the perhaps considered excessive contact on that play after Williams made the catch.
Again, Dropcho drawing the Williams assignment.
Luke Hancock shooting to the end zone from Austin McGrain, and UNCW's got a quick score on offense as well.
Luke Hancock into the end zone for Austin McGrain.
So Jack Williams starting to find his confidence on that point with a tremendous possession-saving grab on Xavier Maxtad's break throw. As we take a look again at some more scores from the other pre-quarterfinals taking place right now, Texas A&M and Florida State tied at 5s. Minnesota leads Oregon 3-2 as well.
Colorado now up 4-2 on Georgia.
So we see Greg Vassar giving instruction to his defensive unit there. We're seeing Xavier Maxtat come over for the first time to Wilmington's defensive unit.
It'll be Charlie Leon with the pull here. You can see Wilmington looking to retake the lead. Each team with one break. We're on serve here. This is Ultiworld's live coverage of the 2015 D1 College Championships. Charlie Eisenhood alongside Ian Toner. Tyler Kunza out to Earls on the far side. Earls comes underneath to Max Thorne, but a pick call.
Max Thorne did take Grayson Sander kind of for a little curl around the front of the stack. Sanders' shoulder did catch the back of Christian Pitts. I don't know if he was going to get there to actually make a play, but his defensive path was impeded.
So the disc will go back. Earls with it, with Max out on the mark. Tyler Kunza unmarked, has a shot deep. And all alone is Max Thorne. And he reels it in as Pittsburgh goes back up 5-4.
So Max Thorne showing no signs of being slowed down by his knee injury. Perhaps to UNC Wilmington's chagrin, but we'd love to see the best that both of these teams have to offer.
And the team's really starting to find a rhythm now after a very up and down start. Lots of turnovers on the first point. We had 8 or 9 turnovers. And now we are starting to see the offenses feel a little bit more comfortable out there. Take the shots that they're looking for. And it's just an absolutely gorgeous day here in Milwaukee. Some weather supposed to roll in over the weekend on Sunday and on Memorial Day. But at least today we were treated to mid-70s weather, sunshine, and just a light breeze. Here comes the pull from Van Dusen. Xavier Maxtat picks it up, centers to Hancock. Hancock throw out into space for Maxtat. No continuation cut there, but he is able to go back to the middle. And now a call. Some contact in the stack, perhaps a pick. Still haven't seen a signaling from the observer. Yes, indeed, it is a pick.
Looks like a pick call.
So lots of conversation here.
Going back to his post,
disc will stay with Eric Esposto for UNCW. Van Dusen on the mark for Pittsburgh. And there seems to be some relatively needless discussion about foot placement for the Pittsburgh defense. Esposto looking to get rid of it. He has to throw it out into space, and that's going to be to nowhere. Christian Pitts was chasing that down. May have had a play if he needed to make one, but there was nobody there for UNCW. So Pittsburgh with a chance to extend their lead to 2. Here's Jonah Wish.
Wilmington trying to set a transition zone. And Dropcho not happy about that bid from Jack Williams.
Williams really didn't have a chance at that disc.
Interesting to see that he wouldn't get a technical issued against him after the Pittsburgh defender was issued one on that catch that Williams made earlier in the game.
And it's a little chippiness down on the field as there's a call after the quick backhand break from Reyna Dropcho to Van Dusen.
Quick call upheld. The disc will go back to Reyna Dropcho. In on 3.
Reyna Dropcho with the disc for Pittsburgh. 35 yards outside the end zone, looking for Dillon.
And if I'm Pittsburgh, I love this matchup right here between Trent Dillon and Luke Hancock. This is one that Dillon has the speed and quickness advantage. If he can get in a give-and-go handler situation, he can abuse Hancock on this turn. Appeared to be a violation before Dillon threw that pass to Dropcho, but it's coming back in now. Dropcho back to Dillon. And Pitts elevates to save possession.
Huge grab from Christian Pitts, keeping Pitt with an opportunity to get the break here. And a massive layout block from Eric Esposto. And now they'll look deep to him. He's running to the front corner. He lays out, but he can't make the catch.
Tremendous block by Esposto. He read the progression as Dropcho caught that swing and looked to continue movement. And Wilmington's going to set their transition zone. Jonah Wish to pick up on the cone.
Wish. Short scoober to Dillon. Now Pittsburgh working out of their own end zone. Dillon, low hammer, and it's knocked away. So ambitious look there. Comes back to Wilmington. Here's Maxstat. He throws a high release backhand out to the corner, and it's in. So Matt Mason pulls it down for UNCW, and a bit of a scare there for the Seamen. Ends up in a tie game. It's 5-5.
One of the longer high release backhands we've seen completed so far this tournament. Maxstat using the wind at his back to his advantage to carry that from about 20 yards out into the front corner of the end zone. We just saw Charlie Leon and Mitch Dangler trade discs, so there's going to be a new disc introduced here. And Wilmington will call a timeout with the game tied at 5s. Take another quick look at scores from around the division. Texas A&M and Florida State are tied at 6. Colorado leads Georgia 4-3. And at last check, Minnesota was leading Oregon 3-2. Again, Charlie, one of the major surprises of this tournament. We knew Oregon was coming in with a low seed after their surprising lower finish than normal, or than expected at Northwestern Regionals, but they still did not rise to the challenge and barely emerged with that third seed from Pool C scraping their way into pre-quarterfinals.
And they may have had some help from UNC, who rested their starters in their final round matchup because UNC had already clinched the pool. So we'll keep an eye on that game. Hope you're enjoying the coverage this weekend here from Milwaukee. If you are, we would really appreciate a donation to our tip jar, which you can find on ultiworld.com/live. Helps us cover costs for our fantastic reporters, our coverage of both divisions. And of course, these free live streams. So coming out of the timeout, UNC Wilmington again sending Maxstat out to the defensive line.
Jack Williams as well.
So this is a deep line here for Wilmington. They're looking for a break.
Charlie Leon once again to pull for the Seamen.
Here's the pull from Leon. Centered to Kunza. Flood play. Max Thorne all alone. Max Thorne looking deep for Bender. And this throw is too low. So a rare mistake on the huck from Max Thorne.
Charlie, I don't know about your perspective, but it looked like Bender pulled up perhaps a split second too early. May have had a chance at reeling that one in.
Either way, it's Wilmington disc. Leon brings it to the line with Maxstat in the backfield. It's a three-man game with Leon, Maxstat, and Williams, but nobody's open, so Leon forced to put up a hammer, and it's caught by Maxstat, who steps immediately into a backhand, and he's got a man all alone, and that's a break for UNC Wilmington.
Except
we have a call back at the spot of the throw. So it's going to come back on a pick.
Observer Mitch Dangler showcasing his athleticism with the grab there.
Crowd roars in approval.
With the disc for Wilmington.
I think what happened there is Tyler Kunza was trying to set the mark. He had to go through. Wilkin Hanaway was in the area also trying to make the catch, and so it was a pick.
I wouldn't be surprised to see Maxstat uncork a hammer here to still capitalize on this shot, but it's an inside flick instead.
It's going to hang up. It's going to be a defensible play, but what a grab! Austin McGrain climbs the ladder, goes up over Pat Earls, and gets the Wilmington break, and they are fired up. And Austin McGrain is having a great game.
That's his third goal of this first half. The second break of the first half for Wilmington, and now they enjoy their second lead of the game at 6-5. And it was interesting to see that Wilmington offense get started in the shadow of its own end zone. Leon looked at the stack in front of him for a few seconds and tried to wait for some cuts to develop, and then Maxstat just kind of took off from the dead space on the break side, and Leon made eye contact and threw a leading hammer to that space, just trusting that Maxstat would make the play.
And just to note, Austin McGrain stands at 5'10", and he went up over the top of Pat Earls, who stands at 6'2". So an extra benefit to that play and a huge break, and that's the kind of shot that Maxstat likes to take. He's not worried about those height matchups. He trusts his teammates, and they go for the big kill shot.
And there we see the reasons why there are questions about Pitt's ability to defend the deep ball.
As we watch the pull go right through the legs of Marcus Reyni-Dropcho, and the question is, did he touch the disc? I guess they're saying that he didn't, so Earls is going to bring it to the front of the end zone.
I'm not sure what the recourse is here for Wilmington. Can they appeal to an observer?
Oh, and it looks like maybe they did, and then it's been ruled touched by Reyni-Dropcho. So Pitt's going to be forced to start at the back of their own end zone. This could be huge. Pat Earls looking for somebody to get open. Not a lot there. He's going to be forced to put up a big huck. He's got a couple players downfield. 3 go up. And the second effort grab from Tyler Kunza, he lands in bounds.
We saw Dropcho elevate before anyone else even thought about leaving their plant leg, and he was able to just get a fingertip on the disc. He was definitely going to grab it, but he ended up macking it into the hands of Tyler Kunze.
And it is going to be ruled a catch. I think there was some question about whether or not Tyler Kunze was in bounds on the far sideline. Kunze dishes to Earls. See the backhand force here from UNC Wilmington, and a nice shot right to the goal line, and there's a call.
Not surprising. No love lost between these two teams, and any chance they get to slow down momentum, they'll make a call to do so.
Max Thorne with the disc just outside of the end zone for Pitt.
So Max Thorne will have the disc right on the goal line here for Pittsburgh. He sends it back to Earls. Earls now looking into the end zone, and he gets it to Saul Graves.
He punches it into the end zone.
And Pittsburgh gets the hold.
Saul Graves cutting over to bring that in for the Pitt score.
And it's now 6-6. And that's the quasi upwind direction. It's not a strong wind right now, but if it's easier to score in one end zone, it would be the right-hand end zone because the wind is blowing a bit from left to right on your screen.
Wilmington 6.
We've definitely seen teams earlier today struggle to progress from right to left. For instance, A&M zone stifling Minnesota earlier in Pool B pool play. And right here we see a strong bailout huck from Pat Earls. Pittsburgh doing a great job surrounding the landing point and being able to come down with that disc. Frankly, their offense has to feel lucky having emerged from that point with a hold.
So coming down to the end of the first half here, UNC Wilmington with the break advantage right now, and a couple of very big points coming up as UNC Wilmington will be receiving to start the second half.
We saw Coach David Hogan, one of Pittsburgh's coaches, giving instruction to his defense there, and he was telling them specifically to tailor their marks to guard against the hammer throws.
Throw out into space for Ward. Ward looking to get it back to Hancock. Settles instead for the dump back to Maxstat, who immediately puts up a big backhand. He's got Jack Williams all alone, and Williams tracks it down.
Williams, who has matched up with Dropcho so far this game, has really caught everything that's been thrown his way. And I'm not sure, Dropcho wasn't in the vicinity when Williams made that grab. I wonder if he felt that Williams was too deep for Maxstat to connect or consider a viable option, but that was an incredibly strong and impressive upwind huck from Xavier Maxstat.
And both he and Luke Hancock have tremendous power behind their hucks. They often run a play where they'll pick up the disc, maybe a turnover in the end zone, and instead of walking it up to the front line of the end zone, they'll just pick it up and immediately rip a huck down the field with no mark, and oftentimes you'll see them score straight off the throw.
And if you think about it, Wilmington is actually well suited to play in these conditions because whenever teams travel down to Wilmington for Easterns, they know it's going to be a windy tournament. These are the conditions that Wilmington practices in all the time.
And just to note, we're going to do something a little bit different at halftime. We're going to take a short break, and then we'll come back before the second half begins, and we'll answer some questions. So if you want to ask us something, shoot us a question on Twitter at @ulti_world. You can tweet at me at @CEisenhood or at Ian at LeftyBrohand, and we'll try to answer some questions coming back into the second half. You can also ask questions in the YouTube chat if you're watching there, and we'll try to filter some of those in as well They can be about this game. They can be about the tournament in general. 7-6 Pitt. Excuse me, 7-6 UNC Wilmington. And UNCW getting set to pull to Pittsburgh here. And this is, of course, a critical point for Pitt. Going in the upwind direction, but needing to hold in order to at least give themselves a chance to get in front before halftime. And remember, UNCW will receive to start the second half. Here's the pull from Charlie Leon. And a first throw turnover from Trent Dillon. Excuse me, from Saul Graves. Graves just didn't put enough underneath that throw, and he put it into the ground. So a short field here for Wilmington. And Maxtad looking to the front corner, and it's a break for Wilmington. Unbelievable. And just like that, UNC Wilmington takes half 8-6 on Pittsburgh. Jake Gallagher with the score for the Seamen.
That's one of those mistakes that is kind of inexcusable at this point in the season. A centering pass, there wasn't pressure. You do have all the time in the world to just step into it and put some zip behind it. I think Graves was thinking multiple throws ahead and multiple moves ahead, and that just lost his focus and went into the ground.
And a brutal lapse in focus means that UNC Wilmington has a 2-point lead here at halftime in the pre-quarters match. Remember, losers going home. And it will be UNCW to receive coming out of half. We're going to take a short break. We'll be back to answer your questions. Ask them on Twitter, ask them on YouTube. And so we'll be back in about 5 minutes with a halftime show. And then we'll get set for the start of the second half. At the end of the first, it's UNCW 8, Pittsburgh 6.
What does it mean to be powered by Savage? It means we become part of your team. From the moment you're paired with one of our sales reps who will guide you through the ordering process, to working with a designated member of our design team to bring your vision to life. Every step of the production process happens in-house, from printing your gear on our green line fabric made from 100% recycled plastic bottles, to cutting out every piece and carefully stitching it together by hand. Wherever you are, however you play, we've got your back. That's what it means to be powered by Savage.
Welcome back to Milwaukee, Wisconsin, where UNC Wilmington leads Pittsburgh 8-6 here at the halftime intermission. Charlie Eisenhood alongside Ian Toner. We're going to answer some questions here as somewhat of a halftime show. If you got anything you want to ask, hit us up on Twitter, ulti_world. And so one thing we've had a lot of questions about one particular thing, and I'll start with this with you, Ian. What can Pittsburgh's defense do against Xavier Maxtad's deep throws? Why don't they look ready? And what can they do to adjust to what Maxtad has been doing with the deep shot?
Well, let's first comment on the specific instance that's resonating in everyone's mind. That most recent point where Xavier Maxtad ripped a 65-plus yard upwind backhand huck was something we haven't seen anyone do on this field in these conditions yet today. So if I'm a Pitt defender and I see my receiver 60 yards deep upwind, I am going to front him considerably. So I'm going to guess that the Pitt defenders in that situation thought that the receivers weren't a viable threat. That being said, I want to see some of the matchups change. I understand that Trent Dillon's a great defender. but Maxstat's been able to get whatever resets he wants. How about you put a bigger body like Marcus Dropcho on Maxstat to make it challenge his release points a little bit more, make it more difficult to get him in a strong position, and then perhaps put a springier defender like Dylan or Christian Pitts on those top deep threats like Jack Williams or Esposto.
Great. And we've got a lot of questions to try to get to. We're not going to get to all of them, obviously. Somebody suggested, would a better mark or maybe straight up mark put more pressure on the UNCW throwers? The mark was way off on the huck before half. That comes from Benjamin Cohen. Thanks for the question, Benjamin. I think it's possible. We were getting set to start the second half here. I think it's possible, but the thing is that both Luke Hancock and Xavier Maxstat have the ability to throw a fake and then go the other direction, and they can go over the top. They each have big overhead throws, and if you're stepping way back off the mark, you basically give them an uncontested look with the hammer. You kind of have to pick your poison. I think, if anything, they just have to do a better job of being focused downfield defensively. They let Jack Williams get open deep with nobody on him. You just can't do that against UNC Wilmington. The reason that UNCW has had so much trouble earlier in this weekend is that other teams have been challenging Williams. For example, UMass's Jeff Babbitt hanging out in the deep space, taking that away, and just winning aerial contests. Now, I think you try to put Christian Pitts back there. He's probably got the hops to get up and at least challenge Jack Williams. You're not going to be able to take away all the throws from these big throwers for UNC Wilmington. Clearly, there's some focus issues right now for Pittsburgh. They've had a lot of turnovers on offense. Obviously, they have the turf at the end of the half that allows UNCW to get an extra break going into halftime. There's some work for them to do. We'll see if they can do it. The second half is underway, and it's UNC Wilmington starting on offense.
One final question that I'd like to answer, Charlie, after this throw.
Big shot from Luke Hancock, looking for McGrain, going to the back of the end zone, and it's going to go out of bounds. Pat Earls caught up, and McGrain, who might have had enough steps to get to that first if there was a little more end zone, unable to get it in bounds. So Pittsburgh with an opportunity here to get a break to start the second half. This throw right to the sideline, and Tyler Kunza just toes the line.
Nice focus to keep that on Pitt's play.
Kunza up the line to Renai Dropcho. Renai Dropcho to Van Dusen. Van Dusen steps into a big huck. This is going to float up. 2 Pitts players, 2 defenders, and it's knocked away.
And Trent Dillon's going to call a foul, claiming that Xavier Maxstat came in and hit his forearm before he could reach over and grab the disc. I did see that contact. I'm just wondering if the disc was still catchable at that point.
So a very clear call from Dillon, who made the call immediately and went straight over to the observers. And now it looks like the observers are going to discuss the play here. This could be a very big call for Team Orange.
I have a feeling that the foul call is going to be upheld.
And the foul call will be upheld, so it's going to be Pittsburgh's disc. Right here on the goal line, Trent Dillon will check it in. So a golden opportunity for Pittsburgh to start the second half with a break. We see Carl Morgenstern right there. It's going to get dished back. Here's Kunza right on the goal line, trying to jam it into that corner. Good defense from Wilmington so far here. Kunza now trying to get rid of it, and he will go to the front corner of the end zone and punch it in. So a huge score for Pittsburgh. Marcus Renai Dropcho with the goal. And it's now 8-7 UNCW, so a perfect start to the second half for Pittsburgh.
And Charlie, I want to address one other question that came in from the Twitterverse during our little halftime questionnaire. A user named Riggs asked if we thought the winner of this game would be in the finals. It's interesting that they asked that because I was talking about this exact question, how far the winner of this game would advance, with both you and Evan Lepler before this game. I don't care who wins this game. I don't see either one of them advancing past UCF at this point. I think whoever wins, their run ends in the quarterfinals.
Well, and we have seen that over the last 6 years, 23 of the 24 teams to advance to the semifinals have all won their pool and had gotten to bye into the quarterfinals. The only team that has come out of the pre-quarters to do it is UNC Wilmington, and they did it last year when they upset Pittsburgh in the quarters to reach the semifinals against their regional rival, UNC. But the way that UCF looked today and the way that these two teams have looked, it's a very clear contrast between the sharp play of the Central Florida Dogs of War and the little bit sloppier play from these two programs. Throw out into space for Maxtat, but it's tipped. But Maxtat gets it on the second effort. Maxtat swings it back. It's with Hancock. Back up the line to Maxtat. Power position. He puts up the huck. This is going to hang. Pitt's going to have a chance, but a great grab. Jack Williams able to get it, and then he dishes for the goal. So Jack Williams continuing to make his mark on the game. And it's now 9-7 Wilmington.
So Wilmington with a powerful 9-7 lead here in the second half. We're 25 minutes away from the soft cap. Take a quick look at some other scores from around the division. Florida State leads Texas A&M 10-9 in another pre-quarter final. Oregon has just broken to take half on Minnesota. Ego leads 8-7. And Colorado squaring off against Georgia in the other pre-quarter final. They've taken half on Georgia, 8-5. So UNC Wilmington will be on defense now with the wind at their backs, a 9-7 lead. Charlie Leon pulling for the Seamen.
Big rolling pull gets knocked down and then centered up to Tyler Kunsa. Comes over to Max Thorne. Thorne immediately putting up the shot to Christian Pitts. Pitts not going to get there. Nice defense, but an immediate foul call, as it did look like maybe there was a little bit of an extension of the left arm there from the UNCW defender, and that's exactly what Christian Pitts is saying.
I do think the Wilmington defender still had sound position. I don't know that it was an intentional push. It could have just been a light balancing touch. That being said, that could still be grounds for a foul.
Ruling coming from the observer, no foul. So it's going to be a D for UNC Wilmington. And we're tapped back into play here. So Xavier Maxtat will pick it up for UNCW.
We've seen a number of throwers pick up on this cone and throw full field throws. And Kunsa gets a piece of that one.
And I think we may have a call. No, I think it's just going to be they're marking the spot. So a hand block for Kunsa. And that's the first time we've seen that all day, a big hand block at that cone. So great chance for Pittsburgh. Hammer into the end zone, and it bounces off the ground. So another execution mistake for Pitt.
It's Pat Earls pulled that trigger after Max Thorne had juked Grayson Sanner and had him on the ground.
We've got a shot here.
And another block from Kunsa. No foul on the play. That disc is going to come right back in 5 yards from the goal line.
So Pitt's going to get another shot, and wow, what defense from Tyler Kunsa. Not one, but two huge hand blocks on big backhands. Spectacular from Kunsa. He gets it, and he's going to throw it into the end zone for the score. I think there may be some sort of call, maybe because Kunsa hurried to the spot, but it didn't look like he traveled. He just stepped through what you might consider a defensive foul. And right now, Max Thorne is standing with the disc after having caught it in the end zone. And there's some discussion. Wilkin Hanaway is the one calling the foul, and it is not a travel, rules the observer, so that's a score for Pittsburgh.
By Wilmington. That call is waved off by the observer. That's a score for Pittsburgh. Kunsa into the end zone for Max Thorne.
So Pittsburgh relying on the strength of his O-line defense to keep it in the game, specifically the defense of Tyler Kunsa. He knew that Xavier Maxtat wanted to uncork some deep shots from that front cone and adjusted his mark appropriately.
That's remarkable to get two hand blocks on backhand hucks. It's tough to get over there and get a block without getting a piece of the arm of the thrower. And to do it twice on two fantastic throwers at the top of the game is remarkable. That we may end up looking back on this as a big moment in the game. 9-8 UNC Wilmington leading Pittsburgh.
So Maxtat and Williams pulling double duty and staying out here for their usual O-line assignments. Pittsburgh yet to put a kill line out there.
This pull lands in and rolls right out the back of the end zone, so it'll be brought to the line by Luke Hancock. Instead, it'll be Maxtat. UNCW checks it into play. Dillon on the mark. Ahead to Ward. Ward flick to McGrain. And a pick called downfield.
Boston McGrain with the disc.
Checked in. McGrain ahead and a turnover. Maybe a miscommunication there with Cale Ward. And a golden opportunity again for Pittsburgh.
Tyler Kunsa picks up for Pitt.
Reyna Dropcho to the far side, and it's knocked away. Two players coming to the same spot.
Back to Wilmington.
It's one of those situations where you just have to be assertive and go grab the disc if it's in your vicinity.
Maxtat up the line. And now again up the line, and there's nobody home on defense, and it's an easy four-side score for UNCW. They go back up by 2.
Some of the sloppier defense we've seen from Pittsburgh this game. Right after that turnover, a huge 30-yard under, and then a wide open strike into the end zone for Jack Williams. Marcus Reyna Dropcho nowhere in sight on that strike cut.
We're now 16 minutes from the soft cap. Season's on the line here in Milwaukee. Neither of these teams could have ever imagined that they would be facing elimination in the pre-quarters.
Timeout called on the field.
And we're going to have a timeout on the field.
North Carolina Wilmington takes their first timeout of the second half.
UNCW calls timeout. That's their first of the second half.
Another quick check-in around the division. Colorado Mama Bird leads Georgia 10-5. Oregon still holding on to that 8-7 halftime lead over Minnesota. And Florida State A&M, the other game taking place right now. At last check, Florida State had an 11-9 lead.
Couple of scores from the men's division away from the stadium. CU over Georgia 10-5. Oregon over Minnesota 8-7. And Florida State up 2 over A&M 11-9.
So Wilmington stacking their D-line once again here. Xavier Maxtat and Jack Williams coming over. Looks like they'll be setting a zone here against Pittsburgh's offense.
And it really feels like if UNC Wilmington can get one more break, that it might really start to think about that, putting this game away.
He rules it out of bounds.
Rainai Dropcho catches the first pass off the sideline, off the rolling pull. UNCW loves to use that rolling pull to keep teams out of their offensive flow. Nice work up the far sideline from Pitt. Now ahead again to Kunza. Kunza up the line to Christian Pitts. An efficient score for Pittsburgh right up the line.
And that's you see the perils of relying on a junk or zone set there. If things are broken in one throw or an early throw, the opposition can go off to the races. And that's exactly what Pittsburgh did with a number of easy four-side throws up the line, not giving the Wilmington defense any chance to reposition or transition well.
Ian, do you think this game is going to go down to double game point? The last two times these teams have faced off, that's what we've seen.
I still haven't been impressed by Pittsburgh's defense yet this game, so I have no reason to believe that they're going to get the turn or the break that they need to put themselves in that position.
We'll see if they're going to start stacking their lines here. We do see Christian Pitts playing defense on this point. We still haven't seen Max Thorne. But Pat Earls is out there. They may be a little worried about Thorne because of his earlier injury. Often you would see him out on a point like this one. Here's the pull from Sam Van Dusen. It's a good one, lands in and rolls out the back. Pitt's going to be able to set their defense.
Rolls out the back of the end zone. Wilmington will put it in play from the line.
Luke Hancock checks it in.
Just man defense here from Pittsburgh. Hancock looking up the line, another nice throw to Xavier Maxtat. Maxtat immediately looking deep to Williams. Williams isn't going to get it this time.
And you saw Dropcho baiting that throw, standing a few yards under Williams, even though Maxtat had completed some stronger upwind throws. That time the strategy pays off. Dropcho maintains position, and Pittsburgh has a chance to break. Earls wants to rip.
Comes to Kunza in the center. Kunza hits Earls. Earls. Io Huck looking for Dillon. And Dillon pulls it down and ties this game at 10. And what a throw from Pat Earls as Pittsburgh ties this game.
It's almost like the Pittsburgh sidelines heard me when you asked me that question about will this game go to double game point before this point started. Well executed defense from Marcus Rainight Dropcho. And nice efficiency on that turn to convert the break. Pittsburgh is back, knotted things up here at 10. And of note, we are just over 10 minutes away from the soft cap horn.
We're all tied up here in Milwaukee. And I think you see there, it's the double-edged sword of the Maxstat Huck into coverage to Jack Williams. Maybe more than half the time he's going to bring that down. But there's going to be times when he's just not able to get it. The defense is waiting for it.
Especially with the wind in the thrower's face.
And this is one of those times, and that's a critical break for Pittsburgh. And
we hear Henry Thorne leading the cheers for the Pitt fan section.
Henry, of course, the father of Max Thorne, also former Pitt star Alex Thorne, who won a couple of national championships with the program.
Maxstat with a disc for the Seamen.
Maxstat holding, now gets it back to Hancock.
Interesting to note that none of these, wow, in a serious pick where Marcus Rainight Dropcho just leveled his own teammate. Can't tell if that was Graves or Kunsa. But on that note, none of the matchups has changed in this second half. Dillon still marking Maxstat, Dropcho still marking Williams.
Dump back to Maxstat. He'll swing it to the center for Ward. Hancock, Scuber, finds Williams. And Williams looking deep for Xavier Maxstat, and Maxstat's got steps, and he's got the goal. Maxstat called for that disc about 2 seconds before it was put up by Jack Williams, and a great throw from Jack Williams gets over the head of everybody. And Xavier Maxstat, releasing from the handler position, runs it down.
Those two players, Trent Dillon and Xavier Maxstat, are going to do battle later this summer when they compete together on the men's under-23 national team. Perhaps a preview of some of the matchups we'll be seeing at their training camp. So Wilmington leads Pittsburgh 11-10 here with about 7.5 minutes to go until the soft cap. Again, both teams are in a do-or-die situation. Win or your season's over. We've seen breaks from both teams. Pittsburgh's defense starting to find life here in the second half, but they still have yet to regain the lead. Wilmington has been in the driver's seat for much of this game.
And you just mentioned the U23 Team USA men's team. There are actually 6 players in this game that are on that team, and that shows you not only the talent on the field right now, but how impressive these programs are. As Pittsburgh's offense gets back to work, it's Pat Earls in the center for the Pitt offense.
Max Thorne's ISO cut well defended by Grayson Sanner.
Kunsa goes back to the center for Earls. Earls, lefty flick, looking for Thorne. He's got him.
God, and the Wilmington defense just has no chance on a throw like that. That's a break throw, bending around the stack, around the mark, to the back corner, and I believe there was a call claiming that Pat Earls traveled on his huck. That lefty flick break huck is his bread and butter throw.
We are awaiting a decision here from the observers on whether or not this was a travel, and they're going to bring it back. It looks like there was a pick call, in fact. It was just a signaling from the observer that there was a pick. Maybe a continuation issue? Either way, it comes back to Earls. Earls to Kunsa. Right back. Does it again. Looking for Thorne. And it's knocked away, but Max Thorne pulls it, and he's out of the back of the end zone.
Incredible block from Grayson Sanner. Again, he's a freshman, having grown up in Arlington, Virginia, playing in the successful Yorktown High School program. Just tremendous athleticism on that block.
And a knockdown from Christian Pitts as he goes over the back of Xavier Maxtat, and Maxtat's going to call a foul. That Grayson Sanner block is one of the best I've seen all tournament. That was unbelievable.
Full extension, shoulder height, hips well off the ground. As we see Mitch Dengler ruling that Christian Pitts' block on Xavier Maxtat was not a foul and was clean.
So it's going to be Pittsburgh disc. Pitts got the block before he really made contact with Maxtat, and that's why that ruling was an easy one for Dengler. Kunsa with it here for Pittsburgh. Another stoppage here. Observers discussing the call with the players here. A lot of long, drawn-out stoppages in this game.
Not sure if there was a...
No call. There
So
was a call, but it was waved off by the
a foul call was waved off by the observers, so it's going to go back to Tyler Kunsa. He dishes to Earls. Right back to Kunsa. About 5 yards outside the end zone. He looks to Joe Bender, but Bender can't pull it in. Bender's sort of halfway laid out there, and it bounced off of his right hand. And the disc will go back to UNCW.
I'll tell you, Charlie, Pittsburgh's offensive points have been much harder than Wilmington's offensive points this half. I don't think that bodes well for Pittsburgh's ability to stay in this game.
Maxtat centers the disc. It comes back to Leon. Leon fakes the backhand huck. And now a call downfield.
pick call downfield.
We see Leon and Dropcho matching up here. I believe that's Kunsa downfield on Maxtat.
Leon checks it back into play. Gets it right back. Now out to the sideline.
And another pick called.
I think we have another call downfield.
Kunsa claiming he called the pick long ago before Maxtat had as much separation as he has now.
So the disc will go back to Jake Gallagher on the far sideline.
This goes back to Gallagher. Hits on the mark for Pittsburgh.
And after some discussion with the observers, it looks like it's actually going to end up in the hands of Maxtat.
Maxtat now with a disc for the Seaman.
He's going to have an open deep lane right away.
Maxtat checks it into play. And he's going to put up an IO backhand down the field. And
Wilmington turnover.
another turnover for UNCW. And now a big shot from Earls down the field. Good position for the Pittsburgh player, and he looks like he had the catch, and then it was knocked out of his hands. And the question is, had he secured the disc? a big layout from Wilkin Hanaway. And they're ruling it a catch. So Joe Bender reels in the score for Pittsburgh, and we are tied at 11.
So Bender able to redeem himself after doinking that first throw in the other corner of the end zone. Pittsburgh's offense having to work hard. This game now tied at 11, and we are 45 seconds away from the soft cap horn.
So it looks like this game will ultimately be played to 14, as the cap will be assessed after the conclusion of this upcoming point. And you hear the horn there. So it will be a game to 14. And we're 20 minutes from the hard cap.
Somebody's going to end up with 12 after this point, so we'll play a game to 14. Van Dusen once again on the pull for pick.
Pittsburgh getting set to pull. Sam Van Dusen puts it up. Maxtat catches the pull, gets it to Hancock.
Wow, Hancock taking some liberties after catching that and an extra step or two.
Short hammer is going to come up short. So Luke Hancock throws it away, and Pittsburgh's going to have a chance to go in the light upwind direction and retake the lead in this game. We have an injury here. Tyler Kunza goes off the field, and he'll be replaced by Max Thorne. So some offensive firepower comes onto the field for Pittsburgh. It's Rainai Dropcho in the backfield, with Thorne having the disc on the sideline, marked by Maxtat. Thorne around to Wish.
Pitts has separation.
Jonah Wish looking to Christian Pitts. Pitts keeps him on his back, and he brings it down. Christian Pitts puts Pittsburgh back in front, 12-11. And a perfect throw from the sophomore, Jonah Wish.
Pittsburgh gets its first lead here of the second half. 12-11 in a game to 14. And Christian Pitts really set up that cut well. He lured Jack Williams all the way in on a deep undercut on the break side, making sure he was as far out of position as possible, and planted and turned deep after he made eye contact with Jonah Wish. And Wish was able to place that throw deep to the break side, and Pitts boxed out and helped give Pittsburgh the 12-11 lead.
And so another timely score from Christian Pitts, who has not been talked about in the same conversation as players like Trent Dillon, Max Thorne, Marcus Rainai Dropcho, and Pat Earls, but has been a very important part of this team, and you can see why here in this game.
Sam Van Dusen on the pole once again for pick.
So now Wilmington's offense is going to have to work upwind, as we see Van Dusen pull once again.
It will bounce and be picked up by Maxtat. Over to Hancock. Dished right back to Maxtat. And a pick call from downfield. Anybody still at the tournament complex not playing is pretty much watching this game. Wilmington up the sideline. Nice grab on the far side. Stepping into a big backhand. Austin McGrain's got some steps. Marcus Reyna Dropcho in the area, and McGrain can't bring it down. Marcus Reyna Dropcho did just enough to get McGrain thinking, and he couldn't haul it in. Bounces in and out of his hands, and Pittsburgh will have the disc here with an opportunity to extend their lead to 2. Trent Dillon underneath to Van Dusen. Van Dusen steps into a backhand. He's got Pitts deep. 2 defenders on the chase. Pitts is tripped up, and he goes down.
I understand the foul call there, but that to me looked like incidental contact. Perhaps feet getting tangled up as both were bodying for position.
We did have some contact there.
And it will be ruled a foul.
The observer does rule that there was a foul on that play.
That's such a tough call. It's one that you see all the time when the player out in front gets tripped up from behind.
He'll call timeout for Pittsburgh.
And Pitts will take a timeout on the goal line.
That's Pitt's first timeout in the second half.
And Charlie, Pitt punches this in. You can see this effectively being the game. Wilmington's going to need a stiff goal line stand here.
Absolutely. I mean, we're in a game to 14 right now. And Wilmington would then be facing a situation where they needed to probably score 3 straight in order to win.
Stranger things have happened in Wilmington's history.
We've seen these teams play these kinds of back and forth games, lots of lead changes. It's a lot like their game at Easterns.
Quick check-in at other scores around the division. Colorado leads Georgia 12-8. Florida State finishes off Texas A&M 15-12. So Florida State onto the quarterfinals. And Oregon, after an incredibly rough start to this tournament, they look to be on their way to victory. They lead Minnesota 13-11 in a game to 14.
And Minnesota just scored in that game a moment ago, and it will be Oregon receiving, leading 13-12 with a chance to win on offense.
As we see a call here.
Cale Ward with the D. We do have a call on the play, however.
So Cale Ward got in the way there and knocked it away, but a foul call.
Pitt's looking for Reyna Dropcho.
And the observers, again, having to make a pretty critical call here.
Coming to the observer.
And the ruling is a contested foul. So the observer's basically not making a ruling here, and the disc will go back to Christian Pitts.
Foul that will keep the disc in Pitt's hands. It goes back to Christian Pitts.
Pitts on the goal line, looking to get rid of it in a tight reset window. A big throw out into space.
And there's a stall called.
As Jonah Wish tracked it down, but we're going to have another dispute after the stall was called. And he was holding it for a long time. And the stall call is wiped off the board. So this is going to stay with Jonah Wish, and they'll get a fresh 10 seconds.
The stall call was waved off.
That was very close. So 2 almost takeaways for UNC Wilmington.
Now some more disputes about the downfield positioning of the Wilmington defenders.
Oregon just wrapped up their game against Minnesota. Wish gets it to Dillon. Dillon looking. Out to Reyna Dropcho, who jumps. And he catches it in the front of the end zone for the Pittsburgh score. That's a break. They now lead 13-11 in a game to 14.
This Pittsburgh team looks much more energized than the team that turf to centering throw before backing their way into halftime down 8-6. But since then, they've been able to claw back, value their break chances, and they are now 1 point away from victory. They have a 13-11 lead in a game that's capped to 14.
Huge moments still to come. Multi-World's live coverage this weekend is brought to you by Boone Technical Clothing. Performance, passion, price. 13-11 your score. Pittsburgh getting set to pull to Wilmington. And you can imagine a scenario where UNCW holds here on offense. Of course, they must if they want to stay in this game. And then is forced to break in order to tie the game up or face elimination. Here's the pull from Pittsburgh. Towering pull is going to land a few yards in front of the end zone in the hands of Xavier Maxtat. He gets it to Luke Hancock. Maxtat throws into a poach. There was a miscommunication with the receiver, and Pittsburgh is now into a transition offense. Wish looking to the end zone, nothing there. Now Trent Dillon. Pittsburgh could finish it here. Dillon to the sideline. Dish back, Dillon. Looks to the front corner, and it's into the end zone for the Pittsburgh win.
I'm not sure exactly what happened. It looked like Luke Hancock tried to change the force there. His downfield defenders were not quite ready for that one, exposing a wide open cut to the far side cone. And another chapter in this storied rivalry comes to an end as Pittsburgh ends Wilmington's season just one season after Wilmington did the same.
Pittsburgh closes out the game on a 4-0 run. It was 11-10 Wilmington, and then Pittsburgh roared back. Some huge performances from their biggest stars down the stretch, and Wilmington comes up short in pre-quarters. What a game. Pittsburgh will advance to face Central Florida tomorrow in the quarterfinals, bright and early here in Milwaukee, 8:30 a.m. start time.
That's a rematch of the 2013 National Championship game that saw Central Florida's rise to prominence.
Pittsburgh would win that game handily, but it's worth noting that Central Florida beat Pittsburgh at one point earlier this season, but then Pitt returned the favor with a drubbing of UCF later in the regular season. All of that's out the window tomorrow morning as Pitt faces UCF, and that is the end of the season for UNC Wilmington. They had a fantastic regular season, but they just ran out of steam here at Nationals, and a remarkable comeback here for Pittsburgh as they hold on to win 14-11. So that's going to do it for our coverage here live from Milwaukee, Wisconsin today. The other pre-quarter matches are mostly finished up or finishing. You can follow along with all of the action on ultiworld.com/live. Again, if you've enjoyed our coverage today, please consider a donation to our tip jar, which you can find on the same webpage. Final score here in Milwaukee, Pittsburgh 14, UNC Wilmington 11. Pittsburgh advances to the quarterfinals tomorrow morning. We'll see you for a women's quarterfinal at 8:30 Central Time right here on the Showcase Field. For Ian Toner and Jesse Goldstein, our videographer, I'm Charlie Eisenhood signing off for Ultiworld's coverage on Day 2 at the College Championships.
This game is brought to you by Spin Ultimate, proud to sponsor Ultiworld's 2020 college coverage. Visit Spin Ultimate on the web at spinultimate.com.
Every time we touch the license, we play better. Let's go, keep down the field.
An Ultiworld subscription gets you closer to the players and personalities you care about with game video, in-depth written and video analysis,
He's going to take off deep, but what he does is very simple.
documentary shorts,
And we've played Brute Squad before, and it just feels a little bit harder to lose this year.
and a whole lot more. To get your subscription or learn more, go to ultiworld.com/subscribe.